From the pages of MikeHuckabee.com, still uncensored by big tech, at least for the time being, that's where you can sign up for the totally free Huckabee newsletter for all my takes on the news of the day. It's delivered right to your email inbox. So let's take another look back at the week that was. Americans learned more about Judge Amy Coney Barrett this week as her confirmation hearings got underway in the U.S. Senate. As the mother of 7 kids, Judge Barrett is used to having to patiently answer the same obvious questions repeatedly for a series of different children. And Democrat senators took on that role with unsurprising ease. They realized they had no substantive or even made-up charges to level at her, so they chose simply to waste everyone's time. Instead of asking Judge Barrett questions, which was the alleged reason for the hearings, Democrats like Kamala Harris droned on, making partisan campaign speeches and accused Republicans of wanting to take health care away from families or make their payments skyrocket by getting rid of Obamacare, which actually made health care more expensive for most people. If this is what her campaign speeches are like, I can now understand why nobody's showing up to the Harris-Biden events. Overall, I'd say the hearings convinced me even more that Judge Barrett is incredibly qualified for the Supreme Court and that there are a lot of senators who aren't qualified to be spreading manure on the Capitol lawn. On second thought, they are qualified to do that. Just 17 days from Election Day, an unlikely booster for President Trump, Antifa. That's right, this past Sunday in Portland, Oregon, the extremist group held a day of rage, and they vandalized or destroyed, quote, non-friendly, end quote, businesses. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. First, isn't every day a day of rage for these people? And have you ever heard of an idea that causes billions of dollars in property destruction? Jerry Nadler once said that Antifa is a myth. Joe Biden says it's just an idea. Well, tell that to business owners like John Jackson, an Army and Marine veteran whose Heroes American Cafe was targeted by ideas of a 9mm variety. Windows were shot out and others smashed with a bat, all for the crime of supporting American heroes like police officers, firefighters, nurses, doctors, military personnel, and veterans. John Jackson, who happens to be African American, says the attack solidified his vote for President Trump. Probably not the effect that Antifa was looking for. Moving on to the Twitterverse, the social media platform went full on 1984 and tried to delete a damaging newspaper expose on Hunter Biden from existence. I tweeted in response, so Twitter and CEO Jack Dorsey refused to post the New York Post story because it doesn't fit the biased and partisan bigotry of Silicon Valley. Americans are kept from thinking for themselves since Twitter will do your thinking for you, and they will censor what might not boost Biden. I'd say it's time for some antitrust action. I also added, Twitter allows disinformation every day, and not just on Donald Trump, but even on my family and me. Yet Twitter does nothing. Election interference? Hey, it's not Russia that ought to worry us. It's Facebook, Twitter, and the twits who run these outfits. Now, the Senate Judiciary Committee plans to issue a subpoena to Twitter's Jack Dorsey, and I got a strong feeling that free market Republicans who were mostly happy with a hands-off approach to big tech in the past aren't going to play so nice anymore. And that brings us to some well-deserved shames. Most of it goes to Twitter and Facebook, who went so far as to lock the accounts of White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany and the Trump campaign, all for sharing the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's shady business dealings. Twitter said it violated their rule about publishing unauthorized content, which I don't think they really thought all the way through. The Pentagon Papers, for example, wouldn't see the light of day on Twitter if that's the standard they're using. Or how about President Trump's taxes, which everyone on the left has been dying to get their hands on for 4 years? No, this unregulated, unaccountable, multi-billion-dollar behemoth picks and chooses what they want us, the great unwashed, what they want us to see, and what they don't want us to see. And how about some shame for the Queen of San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi, who went into full-on huff mode when CNN's Wolf Blitzer dared to ask why she refuses to negotiate with Republicans in order to pass a coronavirus relief bill, even as businesses are going bankrupt and Americans are losing their jobs and standing in food lines. She even called him and his CNN colleagues, get this, apologists for the Republican Party. There's a new one. Good on Wolf Blitzer for getting this dig in at the end.
Thanks so much
for joining us.
Thank you
for your sensitivity to our constituents' needs.
I am sensitive to them because I see them on the street begging for food, begging for money. Madam Speaker, thank you so much.
Have you fed them? We feed them.
Do you feed them? Probably not like you, Nancy, flinging spoonfuls of gourmet ice cream at them from your limo as you drive by on the way to a Silicon Valley fundraiser. Well, now for some shout-outs. First to liberal Rolling Stone columnist Matt Taibbi, who correctly points out that censorship never ends well. Taibbi writes that most Americans just aren't freaking out about this because most of us have lost the ability to distinguish between general principles and political outcomes. So long as the right people are being zapped, no one cares. But we should care. Censorship is one of modern man's great temptations. Giving into it hasn't provided many happy stories. And I say, right you are, Matt, even if you are on the left. And finally, a shout out to Joe Biden's Mormon. That's right, this past week, Joe Biden couldn't remember exactly who President Obama ran against in 2012. He mumbled something about the senator who was a Mormon. Of course, he was talking about Mitt Romney, or Pierre Delecto, which was Mitt's fake name on his Twitter account, whichever you prefer. But just imagine the uproar if Donald Trump had referred to someone as the Catholic or the Jew. Just another day in the world of Joe Biden, though, gaffe after gaffe. And the media looks the other way as they try to run out the clock to November the 3rd. Finally, before we go, I'd like to leave you with a truism from the great American woman, Eleanor Roosevelt, that everyone, especially radical leftists, could benefit from. She said, and I quote, "Nobody can make you feel inferior without your permission." And until next time, these have been the facts of the matter. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, be sure to leave a like, then subscribe, and hit the notification bell below. Now, if you didn't like it, you ought to find a Ben Shapiro video to detox you with more facts.